Right, we now come to business questions. Take care, Will. Shadow Leader of the House, Lucy Powell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To ask the Leader for the forthcoming business.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 13th of May will include, on Monday the 13th of May, motion to approve the draft procurement regulations 2024, followed by a motion to approve the draft agriculture de-linked payments reductions England regulations 2024, followed by a debate on a motion on the risk-based exclusion of members of Parliament. Tuesday the 14th of May, motion to approve the draft Trade Union and Labour Relations Consolidation Act 1992 amendment of Schedule 2A Order 2024, followed by a motion to approve the draft Code of Conduct, the draft Code of Practice on fair and transparent distribution of tips, followed by a general debate on War Graves Week. Wednesday the 15th of May, remaining stages of the Criminal Justice Bill, Day 1. Thursday the 16th of May, a debate on a motion on the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman report on women's state pension age. The subject for this debate was determined by the Backbench Business Committee. On Friday the 17th of May, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 20th of May includes, on Monday the 20th of May, a general debate, subject to be confirmed. Tuesday the 21st of May, if necessary, consideration of Lord's message to the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Bill, followed by consideration in committee and remaining stages of the Holocaust Memorial Bill, followed by a motion relating to the High-Speed Rail Crewe Manchester Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. First of all, I was pleased to join the Leader this week to launch a guide for members and candidates coordinated by the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust on tackling conspiracy theories. Whilst their existence is nothing new, their reach, risk and repercussions are ever increasing, and I encourage colleagues to read this important guide. I want to start by welcoming my new colleague, Chris Webb, the new member for Blackpool South, the first person from Blackpool representing Blackpool in over 60 years. Having campaigned with him for years, I'm proud to now call him my honourable friend. I know too that his former boss and our good friend Tony Lloyd would be thrilled and proud too. Can I also welcome two more members to Labour? The member for Dover and Deal, and the member for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. Our reach into previously undiscovered support is really much broader and deeper than I ever imagined, Mr Speaker. Talking of which, yesterday we understand Conservative members were all trooped over to number 10 for a presentation and briefing on how they didn't really lose the local elections after all. Perhaps we could have a debate on what the local election results are telling us. It might help to inject a little bit of reality into their thinking, because you can't cure something if you're in complete denial about it. Which part of the message that voters were expressing did their tin ears not hear this time? The third biggest swing since the Second World War in a parliamentary by-election? Losing the York and North Yorkshire mayor in the Prime Minister's own backyard? Labour taking Rushmore, the home of the British Army? Or losing one of their more successful elected representatives, Andy Street, in the West Midlands? If they can't hear the message now, it would be a stark awakening in the general election. And we might have all had a small laugh, Mr Speaker, when the former Prime Minister forgot his voter ID, yet another of his own rules that he thought didn't apply to him. But there is a more serious point. We also saw veterans turned away from the polls because they couldn't use their veterans' ID card. The government had promised to add it to the list of acceptable IDs. When will they do that? I notice there's nothing in the upcoming business on the sentencing bill. which is quite a surprise given we learned this week from a leaked email to probation and prison staff that some prisoners will be freed up to 70 days early. Why is the government consistently failing to bring back the sentencing bill where these issues could be properly debated and why are they failing to publish the figures on the number and nature of prisoners released early? It's another part of their plan which isn't working, isn't it? Despite serious and fast-moving developments in Israel and Gaza, the government didn't come to the House to make a statement again this week. It was only through you, Mr Speaker, granting an urgent question that members could raise issues. We want to see an urgent ceasefire and the assault on Rafah stopped. But after much delay, the government rejected the Procedure Committee report into holding Lord Secretaries of State accountable. Yet it is very clear that there is widespread support across the House for their recommendations. So rather than the government simply rejecting it, shouldn't the leader seek the view of this House and bring forward a motion on the accountability of the Foreign Secretary to this House as soon as possible? Whether it's the Middle East, China or Ukraine, there are hugely important matters to be raised. I'm very pleased that the leader has finally brought forward the Commission's proposals on risk-based exclusions next week. Staff and those working in this place will be looking carefully at what we say on Monday in the interests of their safeguarding. However, as we heard last night, members want proper time to debate these proposals and amendments. Has she considered those calls to extend the debate on the motion beyond 2 hours? Despite his latest set of disastrous election results, the Prime Minister continues to insist that his plan is working. Fingers in his ears, ploughing on as if everything is fine. It's as if there's no cost of living crisis or that waiting lists aren't sky high. That voters just need to see more of the real Rishi and listen to him better. But the reality is very different. People are crying out for change. But the only thing that doesn't seem to ever change is that every time he faces the electorate, he loses. That's not going to change, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, can I just first of all mark that yesterday we had VE Day, and I know there will be many events going on across our constituencies during that week. It is a chance to remember the debt we owe our forebears and also think of those facing conflict today. Can I also welcome the Honourable Lady's new colleague to his place and pay tribute to all candidates who took part in the important elections last week. And can I also thank the Shadow Leader for helping me launch the publication she refers to. We commissioned this publication, and I thank all the organisations who worked on it. It is important that we combat the rise of conspiracy theories. It is part of restoring trust in what we do here and keeping trust in democracy. And I think this will be a useful product, not just for members, but also those that wish to come here too. I shall certainly make sure that the Lord Chancellor has heard what she says on the sentencing bill, although he will find her concern odd, given Labour's voting record on our measures to introduce tougher sentences. The Honourable Lady, turning to the issue the Honourable Lady talks about with her new colleagues that she mentions, I do hope the Honourable Member for Dover is being made to feel very welcome indeed in her new party. Whilst I am buoyed up, Mr Speaker, at the news that our odds on retaining Dover have actually slightly improved since yesterday lunchtime. True. I think it is a personal tragedy for the Honourable Lady for Dover, as it was for the Honourable Member for Central Suffolk last week. But what it has exposed is a pattern of behaviour from the Leader of the Opposition. It is a shame, Mr Speaker, that we are not due an update to Peter Brook's Nature Notes. For the decorator crown is a species which covers its surface area with materials to disguise its true form, usually selecting sedentary creatures and seaweed. The leader of the opposition is the decorator crab of these benches, desperate to show that he's not really leading the Labour Party at all. He has channelled Margaret Thatcher, his deputy has praised Boris, he's expelled the member for Islington North with great fanfare, a man who he was campaigning to be Prime Minister only moments before. His exterior shell is stuck over with St George's flags, his gunner's season ticket and several programmes from the last night of the proms. What next? A photo op with a bulldog? A lecture on how misunderstood Enoch Powell was? Should I ask the whip on duty on the front bench if he has checked in recently with the Honourable Member for Rayleigh and Wickford? Mr Speaker, this is Operation Radish, the concerted effort to convince the British public that while the Labour Party might look red on the outside, at its heart it isn't really at all. However, even the defection from our benches of one of Labour's most sternest critics cannot disguise the fact that Operation Radish is not going well. Not everyone has got the memo. The Honourable Lady talks about the important election results last week. Has she noticed that the new mayor for the West Midlands' first act was not to turn his attention to investment or infrastructure, but to Israel and Gaza? Ditto for the mayors of West Yorkshire and London, the latter also stating equivalence between the head of state of Israel and a terrorist organisation. The anti-nuke shadow foreign secretary is currently trying to walk back from calling a candidate for the President of the United States a neo-Nazi sympathising KKK sociopath. The Honourable Member for Ilford North sought to smear a decent candidate for the Mayor of London as a white supremacist. Object to you, Les, and you're a child killer. If you're a woman advocating for your rights and dignity, you are a bigot. Want to strengthen our borders? You're a racist. If you have made money through hard work, you can't possibly get Britain. That is today's Labour Party, just as it's always been. The politics of the PLP is more the politics of the PLO and the JCR. More comfortable in university-tented encampments and picket lines than on the international stage. More interested in thought policing than actual policing. Labour haven't changed. Not their behaviour, not their record. It's still high crime rates, high waiting lists, higher taxes, higher levels of poverty, less pay, less opportunity, less money for the NHS, less freedom. The British people can see what is going on. They like their radishes in salads, not number 10.
Father of the House, Sir Peter Bottomley.
Mr Speaker, my right honourable friend indicates in the provisional business for the week after next remaining stages of the Holocaust Memorial Bill. She is familiar with earlier day motion 711. Could she please arrange that at least 7 days before the House returns to the Holocaust Memorial Bill that there are answers to the questions on recurrent costs, total capital costs, amount of money going to education, and how much more the cost of the project has risen in the last year?
Well, I thank the right honourable member for his question. As I always do, I shall make sure that the ministers in charge of this bill have heard his specific requests, and I will also make sure the business managers take his ask into account.
SNP spokesperson Deidre Brock.
Mr Speaker, could I say firstly, on behalf of my party and in the spirit of congenial politics led by our new First Minister and all our independence-minded ministers, how delighted I am to see the leader still in her place after her party's catastrophic results in England. Not catastrophic enough to mobilise her PM for PM rebels, apparently. Mr Speaker, with her weekly ill-informed comments about Scotland, she is an extraordinary recruiting sergeant for independence, and I'm sure she won't disappoint today. Can I also welcome warmly the launch by the leader this week of the Guide to Recognising Conspiracy Theories, such as those around 5G masts and 15-minute cities. It'll be useful reading for some of the members on our own benches and perhaps those on Labour's increasingly busy right wing. Now, given her personal interest and what's supposed to be a central role of this House in protecting democracy and protecting us, will she be pressing for a wider debate on disinformation and the malign influence of secretive media, social media groups that perpetuate these damaging myths? I'm thinking, for example, of the 36 so-called grassroots Facebook groups I raised with the Prime Minister last week. Forums full of vile racism, conspiracy theories and Islamophobic abuse of Sadiq Khan, all with links to Conservative Party HQ staff, activists and even politicians. Now, there's reason to suspect similar groups are quietly spreading their poison across the UK, including in Scotland. Wouldn't the leader agree this needs to be investigated and brought to light, not laughed off, as the Prime Minister did? Now, last week I also asked the leader about the chaos of the Tory trade tax, the border checks Brexit requires now, or as former Tory ministers have called it, that act of self-harm on the UK. Now, she swerved that with a boast about Brexit boosting UK financial services. Now, Brexit is doing its damage to Edinburgh's trade and talent in this sector too, but services is a sector not affected by the serious issues I raised of rotting food, crippling import charges, biosecurity risks, delays and chaos at the ports. The leader and the shadow leader might be content to ignore the exporters and importers, the farmers and fishers whose businesses have suffered, while she pretends all is well at the Brexit front. But my party and I are not. So I will ask again, when can we put the record straight after last week's twaddle and have a debate in government time on the ruinous impact of Brexit all across the economy?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, first of all, can I rejoice at the news that the Scottish Government no longer has a Minister for Independence. I was waiting this morning, Mr. Speaker, to discover why this would be my fault, but the Honourable Lady didn't raise it. But I want to place on record my thanks to the former First Minister for his service. I know there were many that would kick a man when he is down, but I will not. He has done his best. Some say he has been the worst SNP leader of all time. I say no. Not only has he not managed to be arrested, but other SNP leaders that make his record look pretty stellar. The new First Minister, for example, and I also welcome him to his post. Can I also, in all seriousness, welcome the Honourable Lady's support for the education pamphlet on conspiracy theories. It is very important. It is a real threat, not just to democracy, but also the well-being of our constituents. It's a form of radicalisation, and it is spreading, and we must do everything we can to combat it. The Honourable Lady returns to the issue of the border operating model, and as she will expect, I have paid great attention to what is actually going on. There remains little sign of disruption to border flows as a result of the changes, and volumes of trade appear to be at the levels expected. The IT systems are working as they should, and although, as I said last week, there have been some minor issues to resolve, there is nothing fundamental. And I would be very happy to facilitate a deeper briefing for her or any of her colleagues on that matter, if that would be of interest. Our exports are now at record levels. We have become, as I said, the fourth largest exporter overall, and we are the largest net exporter of financial and insurance services in the world. I'm sorry that she still doesn't seem to recognise the importance of that to her own constituency. And I think that is something to celebrate. So I would ask the Honourable Lady to focus on the realities of what's going on, the opportunities that sit there for her constituents too.
Bob Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we've had the excellent news that Harrow has been allocated by the government funding for a new special educational needs school, something that has been campaigned for by the Conservative-run council, by the officials and by the teachers and parents of Harrow for a considerable length of time. So I'm sure my right honourable friend will join with me in congratulating all those responsible for obtaining this. And can we have a debate in government time on the brilliant work that our teachers and support staff do in special educational needs environments, in very challenging circumstances with a lot of very challenging children?
Well, can I congratulate my honourable friend for all the work he is doing to ensure that his constituents have the provision that they need. We have had a huge uplift to teaching staff overall, and in terms of general teachers, 30,000 more teachers than when we came into office. But obviously we've been expanding special education needs provision as well. But the need is growing, and so we are determined to keep pace with that. I think it's a subject for a debate that would be welcomed by many in this House, and I would encourage him to apply for it in the usual way.
Chair of the Backbench Committee, Ian Mearns.
Very grateful, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the leader for the business statement and for announcing the backbench business debate for next Thursday, the 16th of May. And if awarded the time on the 23rd of May, Mr. Speaker, we would propose debates on UK arms exports to Israel and potholes and highway maintenance. And that will, of course, be the two debates immediately before the Whitsun recess. And although all chamber slots until the Whitsun recess are now pre-allocated, we still very much would welcome applications for Thursday debates in Westminster Hall, where the new time seems to be working quite well. Mr. Speaker, can we have a debate in government time on the vexed question of leasehold reform? We have an issue in my constituency where developers are selling or are proposing to sell packages of property freeholds to third-party companies and denying leaseholders themselves the chance to buy the freeholds of the properties that they live in. This is a really complex legal question, but an awful lot of leaseholders themselves don't have the wherewithal in order to fight these property development companies and third-party companies in buying such investment portfolios. Taylor Wimpey are such a company with an interest in development in my own constituency who are currently doing this. So can we have a debate in government time to try and sort out this vexed question?
Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for, again, his helpful advert for the Backbench Business Committee. He raises a very important matter on a particular aspect of leasehold. He will know that the Secretary of State for the Department for Levelling Up is very focused on these issues. If he wants to give me the specific examples, I will make sure that he has heard the detail of the Honourable Gentleman's case.
Sally Ann Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the House may be aware that Hastings, St Leonards and some surrounding villages suffered the consequences of a burst water main over the bank holiday weekend, depriving tens of thousands of residents and businesses of running water and impacting on Hastings' famous and amazing Jack in the Green weekend and May Day celebrations. And while Southern Water did act promptly in finding and fixing the leak, and I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Member for North East Cambridgeshire and the Honourable Member for Keighley for their huge support, could we have a debate about investing in water infrastructure, including building new reservoirs, maintaining existing infrastructure, the impact of ageing infrastructure on water supply reliability?
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about the situation that affected so adversely the Honourable Lady's constituents. She will know that the infrastructure plans that we are bringing forward and are currently underway to modernise our wastewater system, but also other water systems, are the largest infrastructure project of its type in the world. And she can follow the progress of that infrastructure plan on UK Water's website, which, and particularly on combating the storm overflow issue, is there for the general public to see. I will make sure that the Secretary of State for the Environment has heard the particular case that she raises, and she will know how to apply for a debate in the usual way.
Neil Coyle.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was the 79th anniversary of the E-Day, but the RAF's Photographic Reconnaissance Unit has never been recognised for its contribution to Allied success. The Spitfire AA810 project is seeking a commemoration of their covert operations, and I'm working with Southwark News to try and trace the four Southwark crew, Frederick James, William Fisher, Frederick Legan and Leslie Baker. So can we have time to debate the ongoing need for formal recognition of the PRU and its courageous crews, please, especially given half paid the ultimate sacrifice for our victory in World War II.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman, I'm sure on behalf of the whole House, given the response to his question. This is a very important thing that he is doing, and I will certainly use all the communication channels available to me to get the names of the people he is trying to trace and the particular crews that he is trying to trace as well. It is right that we set the record straight on that. I was in the RAF club earlier this week and got to meet some veterans from Bomber Command, particularly Colin Bell, the Mosquito pilot, and we have to ensure that their legacy is understood for generations to come. Anything that we can do to assist him in this important campaign, I'm sure I speak for everyone in the House, shall be done.
John Bell.
I'm aware that the Leader of the House has been celebrating Portsmouth's elevation to the Championship this season. Of course, last year in Ipswich we celebrated our promotion to the Championship. Of course, right now we're celebrating our back-to-back promotion to the Premier League. So for the first time in over 20 years, the Tractor Boys will be in the Premier League in the big time, one of arguably the biggest single boost to the town for over 20 years. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating Kieran McKenna, our exceptional manager, Mark Ashton, the Chief Executive of the club, the whole team at Ipswich Town from the club, who are passionate about not just the club and the town, and wish them all the best for a Premier League next season. Who knows, maybe Portsmouth might be the year after.
Well, can I, on behalf of us all, congratulate Ipswich Town on this huge achievement. It is great for the fans, but it will also be great for the whole of Ipswich, because these achievements bring economic progress, they bring social progress, and many other things. I think it's an excuse, both of our clubs being promoted, for a bit of a pint. I think I'll stand him one. But no, seriously, congratulations to everyone there, and I hope what he says about Portsmouth comes to pass.
We're at Hobhouse.
Requiring voter ID is simply an additional burden that prevents people from voting and an unnecessary barrier to our democratic process, especially for those poorer communities, ethnic minorities and young people. In last year's local election, 14,000 people were prevented from voting because they did not show the right and did not have the right ID at the time. Can we have a ministerial statement on the impact of the requirement for voter ID in this year's 2024 local and regional elections, please?
Well, the lady raises an important question, and she knows that this issue is reviewed on a regular basis, and I will make sure that the Cabinet Office have heard what she has said. Even people who were against this particular check coming into place to protect people's votes did recognise that, because in other areas where fraud had been particularly prevalent, such as postal vote fraud, for example, progress had been made in cracking down on that. There was the anticipation that would be more fraud in other areas, which is one reason why this was introduced. But I will make sure the Cabinet Office have heard what she has asked.
Sir Mike Penning.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Leader of the House will know that I've raised with her before the discrimination against people that are visually impaired who have to pay VAT on audio books when all books are zero rated. This is a discrimination that cannot continue. We've had debates in Westminster Hall. Can we have a debate on the floor of the House in the government's time to stop the discrimination against visually impaired people?
Well, the honourable gentleman raises an extremely important point, and one which I have a great deal of sympathy for. I will make sure that the Chancellor has heard what he has said, as next questions to the Treasury team are not until much later on, and I think that he is doing a great deal of service by continuing this campaign.
Sir Chris Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can we have a debate on ministerial transparency? As the Leader knows, ordinary MPs have to register any hospitality that they receive from other parties within 28 days in considerable detail with the House. But under the scheme that she still favours, ministers have an exemption and they don't have to publish anything for several months, and they don't have to provide any details at all. She has said repeatedly in this House that she would, by last summer, have made sure that there was a parallel system for ministers. So ministers weren't being treated differently for MPs. That still hasn't happened. So when is it going to happen? And can she explain why we seem to have a retrograde step now? Because in the past, for instance, we learnt that the Home Secretary registered through the department that she'd gone to a Bond premiere, apparently because Bond exercises executive functions. Thereby, I note the person who's laughing because he was the person who made this point, despite the fact that he's obviously a fictional character. But now, ministerial... It will be better... But now, ministerial departments are publishing the barest details. They don't even say what the tickets are for. Could she, for instance, explain to us what her lunch with saints and sinners was all about?
I'm sorry to hear that the honourable gentleman, who's normally a stickler for detail, hasn't noticed that I have actually been reporting my returns monthly since the start of this year, and they're not very exciting, but they are reported monthly, and I think other departments are also being able to do that. The Saints and Sinners Club, I did a speech for charity. 2 charities benefited from it, and they are in my parliamentary register for interests. I know the honourable gentleman is keen on this and has campaigned on this issue for a long time. Of course, people do make mistakes. He himself was adrift 2 years on registering an overseas visit, but I am in favour of parity between ministerial reporting and Parliament, and I have been doing that since the start of this year. I have.
Villiers.
A debate on potholes. In my constituency in Chipping Barnet, they seem to be worse than they ever have been. After representations from me and my honourable friend for Finchley and Golders Green, London is included in the government's major boost for potholes funding, so we need a debate to make sure Barnet Council uses its £736,000 it's receiving over 2 years effectively to tackle these potholes and get them filled in.
Well, I think if there is consensus in this House, Madam Deputy Speaker, on any issue, it is that we cannot talk about potholes enough. An additional £8.3 billion has been allocated to councils for road improvements, and this is something that is of importance to our constituents. Critically as well, local authorities have to account for what they are spending this money on, and since the 15th of March, the last tranche of funding they needed to report against. But I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard her keenness to have a debate on this matter, and she will know how to apply for one.
Colleen Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Godiva Calling, a Battle of the Bands competition, is taking place at venues across Coventry in May and June. The competition will give some of Coventry and Warwickshire's rising musical talents the opportunity to perform at the city's now flagship music event, the Godiva Festival. Successful artists win the opportunity to perform their own music on the main stage over the festival weekend in July. Will the Leader of the House join me in encouraging local musicians to get involved in the competition, and will she arrange a debate on support for grassroots artists and the importance of music and its ability to connect people and bring them together?
Well, the Honourable Lady mentions a number of points which I think are supported by many members in this chamber. I do join her in wishing everyone taking part in the Battle of the Bands a very good time, and congratulate them on making a success of this, what is now seems a landmark event in the Coventry calendar. She will know how to apply for a debate, and I'd encourage her to raise this with the Secretary of State on the 23rd of May.
Sir Michael Harris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. While the Prime Minister is today rightly meeting university vice-chancellors to warn them of their duty of care for Jewish students, the National Union of Students has passed a so-called non-binding motion seeking to expel the Union of Jewish Students. Now, to ban Jews because they are Jewish is pure Nazi ideology, and it gives the lie, frankly, to those who claim that their anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Now, this issue is a national crisis, and it goes to the future of the rule of law in this country, and is in one of the myriad of examples of grotesque anti-Semitism that we're seeing in national life. Will my right honourable friend join me in calling for a cross-party consensus in supporting the Prime Minister in the work that he is rightly doing with universities and others to stop anti-Semitism on campus?
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for raising this very important matter. I am pleased that that meeting is going on today between the Prime Minister the Education Secretary and University Vice-Chancellors. We know from recent research there are universities that do this really well, that treasure all of their students and want an environment on campus where people can learn and live their best life. Sadly, that is not happening on all campuses, and I think that the conduct by the NUS and particular students in it is nothing short of grotesque. And I'm sure that all sides of the House would agree on that point. It is absolutely vital that we push back against this growing trend to increase anti-Semitism. And I think I speak for most honourable members, if not all, that we are supportive of any measures that will do that.
George Galloway.
I always said the Conservatives made a mistake in overlooking the Right Honourable Lady, and she's shown it again today. In that regard, can she help me with what I think is a narrow but important problem? Both front benches support the continuation of arms sales to Israel, but the great majority of backbenchers, even on the other side, would like the opportunity to vote otherwise. It has been stopped, stymied in the past. I hope she can find a way that the House can freely express its attitude to this question, and the government and the Labour front bench might get a rude awakening and a big surprise.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for his concern, but I haven't been overlooked. I'm leader of the Commons. I would just say to him, I mean, he has found his own answer to his own question. He has just been able to freely express his view on this particular matter. He will know that there are strict rules regarding our arms exports, and that is scrutinised as well by a select committee of this House. That is the government's policy. If those lines are breached and there is evidence of that, then that policy will kick in.
Tobias Elwood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Wessex Fields is a large chunk of council-owned land in North Bournemouth, and BCP Council are rushing through the sale of this 9 acres of real estate for £4 million less than its independent evaluation, claiming it is storage rather than employment land. This is the same council that is cutting our famous annual air festival, selling off car parks, public paddling pools and plant nurseries, all because it claims there is no money. Yet here they are, throwing away £4 million of local taxpayers' money. I have written to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up and indeed the Council Scrutiny Committee calling for this to be investigated. But Bournemouth deserves better. So can we have a debate, please, on poor council decision-making?
Well, I'm extremely sorry to hear about these decisions in the honourable gentleman's constituency, and I'm sure many members of the House who have visited the air show previously and are very fond of Bournemouth as a consequence will also be disappointed to hear the choices that his council is making. He has done the right thing in asking the Secretary of State and the Council Scrutiny Committee, as I understand he has, to look at this issue. I will also make sure that the Secretary of State understands the urgency of this, and I hope we can get some common sense.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In February, the Levelling Up Secretary, after much waiting, announced that there would be regulations in place to curb the growth of short-term holiday lets. The summer season is already here. He said they will be in place before the summer. So when are we going to see the necessary regulation to stop the growth in short-term holiday lets and stop all of these landlords coming in and purchasing properties which should be used for family housing in places like York?
Well, I know the Honourable Lady has raised this issue before, and she will know that there is a careful balance that is needed between enabling that economic regeneration and also ensuring that people have homes and can get a good, secure home and get on the property ladder. I'll make sure that the Secretary of State again has heard her request and ask him to update the Honourable Lady.
Robin Walker.
About flood resilience and sport. I'm fortunate to have in my constituency one of the most beautiful and iconic cricket grounds in England, New Road, the home of Worcestershire County Cricket Club. Previously, when it has been flooded, I've been able to reassure colleagues that the ground will reopen and the fantastic work of the ground staff to do it. This year, however, it has been flooded 8 times, and with the increasing risk of flooding as a result of climate change, the board of Worcestershire County Cricket Club have said they are going to have to explore other locations and opportunities. Can she support me, therefore, in urging DEFRA and DCMS ministers to work together to look at all options to support the future of Worcestershire County Cricket Club and to protect New Road?
Well, the right honourable gentleman is fighting for a very good cause indeed. I will, of course, do as he asks and write to both the Secretary of State for DCMS and the Secretary of State for DEFRA to ask them to cooperate and assist the honourable gentleman in this very important campaign.
Kevin Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This afternoon I'm attending the Art Fund 2019 Museum of the Year, St Fagans, in my constituency to celebrate the opening of the newest building in their outdoor offer, the recreation of the Vulcan pub from Cardiff city centre. Now, whilst I'm uneasy about attending a pub in a museum when I used to drink in it many years ago, it makes me feel rather old. It is a fantastic addition to this wonderful museum's offer, and it will be set up like a pub from 1913. Unfortunately, Madam Deputy Speaker, not with 1913 prices over the bar. But can we have a debate on the wonderful contribution that our museums make to our life in this country, and also in celebration of free entry to such museums, which was brought in, of course, by the Labour government?
Well, I'm very jealous of the honourable gentleman's planned visit, and can I give my congratulations to this museum and on their winning Museum of the Year, and I would encourage him also to celebrate this with the Secretary of State on the 23rd of May.
Ian Littlegranger.
Indeed, I must say, Madam Deputy, I have some good news from Mid-Devon. The Honourable Lady, I see, will fall off her chair, no doubt, as long as she doesn't defect. But the main thing is that they have now been forced to release the information on the Three Rivers development, which I think I've mentioned this place a couple of times. They have been doing so because they have been acting irresponsibly. The leader of the council, if he now had a shred of decency, would resign. This is a scandal worth millions. The chairman of scrutiny has done a runner, literally done a runner, and refused to take part. Local government, as my honourable friend for Bournemouth said, is not getting it right. We do need time in this place to debate incompetence, obfuscation, and in some cases, downright dishonesty by councillors who are using their position to bamboozle the people that put them there, which is the voters that vote for us and them.
Well, first of all, can I reassure the honourable gentleman that I am not about to defect to the opposition benches. They wouldn't be interested in me. I'm too left-wing. But I will continue, as I do every week, make sure that the Secretary of State for Levelling Up has heard the ongoing saga in the honourable gentleman's constituency and his concern about the performance of the council.
Debbie Abrahams.
Deputy Speaker. So as a former Minister for Disabled People, I'm sure the Leader of the House is as concerned as I am that it is now 2 years since the Equality and Human Rights Commission issued a Section 23 notice against the government in regard to their discrimination of disabled people. And this, of course, has been followed by the report from the UN Committee investigating a second set of breaches by this government in the Convention on the Rights of Disabled People, which was published a couple of weeks ago. So can we have a debate in government time about why there has been this discrimination by the government against disabled people and what the government is going to do about it?
Well, I will certainly make sure that both the Minister for Women and Equalities and the Minister for Disabled People at the Department for Work and Pensions have heard that the Honourable Lady is keen for an update on this matter. I have to say that in my experience, many, particularly of these international organisations, do not, including people who are from nations which provide very little support for disabled people, that their criticism of this country is quite wrong. I could point to many aspects in many departments about the work that has been done to support disabled people in every walk of life. This is a matter that should concern everyone. Most disability is acquired, whether it is from the built environment or the million people with a disability that we have enabled to get into work and have the dignity of a pay packet because of our change of approach on welfare and support, and many other examples. I think we have a good record over many years. There is always more to do, and I will make sure that both ministers have heard the Honourable Lady.
Dr Matthew Offord.
Months ago, the then Housing Minister told the House that the Secretary of State was considering the recommendations of the final report of the Regulation of Property Agents Working Group published in July 2019. Can we have a Minister come to the dispatch box to advise what progress has been made in order to create an independent body to regulate managing agents, in order that leaseholders and indeed managing agents might have confidence in a single, fair and transparent system which will not only protect leaseholders but also managing agents alike?
Well, I will make sure that the Honourable Gentleman has an update from the Secretary of State on this. He will know that we are committed to raising professionalism amongst property agents. They must already belong to a redress scheme, and both the government's leasehold and freehold reform and renters reform bills will help drive up overall standards. But I shall make sure that the Department have heard what he said.
Andrew Bridgen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, only weeks after admitting to the serious side effects from their product, AstraZeneca withdrew their COVID-19 vaccine worldwide. Like millions in the UK and over 700 million people worldwide, I took the AstraZeneca jab based on the government's assurance that it was safe and effective. I suffered side effects. Now, I know there's very little appetite in this chamber to discuss these matters, but I assure the House there's huge and growing concern from the public about a medical intervention that this House encouraged, coerced and in some cases mandated people to inject into their bodies. So can we have a statement from the Health Minister on the withdrawal of the AstraZeneca vaccine, why the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Authority, failed to act to protect the public interest? Or is it that AstraZeneca withdrew their own product because it was far too safe and effective?
Well, I'm sorry to see the Honourable Gentleman speak like that in this chamber, especially as three speakers on the front bench have raised the issue of conspiracy theories and our combined efforts to push back on them. The vaccine he refers to, according to many independent estimates, saved over 6.5 million lives in the first year of use alone, and over 3 billion doses of it were supplied globally. He will know, like many other medical products, we don't keep vaccines in, particular vaccines in use permanently since their introduction. Disease and therapies change. Vaccines need to be updated. And he knows it's very clear that this has been withdrawn for commercial reasons. It's no longer needed. And there are two particular vaccines that are used now in our NHS with regard to COVID. The Honourable Gentleman has had several debates on this matter, on excess deaths, and of course people suffering ill effects from taking vaccines. That is a serious issue. It needs to be addressed and their needs need to be served. But that is quite another thing from promoting false information about the effectiveness and safety of vaccines. That vaccine and the people behind it saved millions of lives. There is a chapter in the publication we have spoken about that covers this precise point, and I would encourage the Honourable Gentleman to get a copy and read it and think seriously when he comes to the House, as he does every week, and promotes conspiracy theories, to really think about the consequences of what he is doing.
Peter Gibson.
Speaker, I am delighted that Darlington has secured funding for a new 48-place special educational needs school, but there is more to do, with excessively long waits for CAMS assessments putting stresses on families. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that we need to see that these waits are reduced, and can we have a debate on this issue?
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for all he is doing to campaign on this very important issue. He knows that we have made increasing special education needs provision a priority. We've opened 108 special free schools and 51 new alternative provision free schools. But this is a growing need, and we want to ensure that every child and young person can have access to the support they need to thrive. He knows how to apply for a debate, and I shall make sure that the Secretary of State for Education has heard about his continuing campaign and his interest in to do more for his constituents.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today we are hosting an event called the National Agriculture Awards for Women, celebrating women in farming. And it's absolutely fantastic opportunity for women across Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and England to be celebrated. Would the Leader of the House join me in celebrating the hard work and the backbone of British farming, which is the women?
Can I, on behalf of the whole House, congratulate the Honourable Lady for her involvement in this event, and of course send our thanks and good wishes to everyone attending, but also everyone across the 4 nations of the UK who is providing this fundamental service to our population in food production and in caring for the land and the environment. She is absolutely right. In this sector, as in most, it is women who deserve the greatest praise.
Steve Double.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund is an important part of this government's levelling up agenda. It's been very important to us in Cornwall, where it's supported over 100 businesses and community projects, including around £1 million to improve flood resilience at Mearns Harbour and £350,000 to promote all year round tourism in Newquay. The current round of funding expires next year, and the people in Cornwall are eager to know what the future holds. I know the precise details and the amount will be part of the spending review, but could we have a statement from the government on how it sees the future of the Shared Prosperity Fund?
Well, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is worth £2.6 billion, has played a major part in restoring pride in places and helping people access opportunity in places particularly of need, such as ex-industrial areas, deprived towns and rural coastal communities. Can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for all the work that he has been doing in his local area, and I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard that he is keen to have an update on this matter, and he will know how to apply for a debate.
Luke Pollard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Derriford Hospital in Plymouth has declared 5 critical incidents already this year. Despite the heroic work of dedicated NHS staff, it has one of the worst A&E performance and ambulance handover delays in the country, with social care, primary care and NHS dentistry in a dire state in Plymouth too. Can we have a debate on health in Plymouth and what can be done to support those brilliant NHS staff in rescuing services at Derriford Hospital?
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the particular performance of his local trust, but he will know that we are putting a huge amount of resource in to ensure that we can catch up, particularly since the pandemic. 2 million more operations, over 160 diagnostic centres been set up. There's the dental recovery plan, and of course the funding is provided by the UK government, but it will be up to local commissioners how they are using those services. The next questions to the Secretary of State for Health are on the 4th of June, and I would encourage him to raise any specific concerns he has with her then.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much welcome and support the government ensuring that the UK is in the vanguard of global decarbonisation of aviation, and I also welcome and support the Sustainable Aviation Fuels mandate coming in early next year. However, the revenue support mechanism isn't planned to be introduced until later in 2026. So can we have consideration of a statement on bringing that forward to ensure that there is certainty in the UK sustainable aviation market so that domestic manufacture of this fuel ensures that we decarbonise our aviation and ensures that we are in the forefront of green technology.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for this, and of course we can be very proud that the UK is world leading in this regard, not just our incredible science and business community, but also the RAF, second mention in this session of business questions, who have also been pioneers on sustainable aviation fuel. The next questions to the Secretary of State for Transport on the 16th of May, and I would encourage him to raise this with him there.
Quest. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This week marks World Asthma Week, and new analysis from Asthma and Lung UK has shown that 12,000 people have died from the condition since the National Review of Asthma Deaths was published in 2014. In fact, asthma deaths have increased by almost 25% in the last 10 years, despite there being major preventable factors in 2/3 of these cases. So please could we have a statement from the Health Minister outlining how the government plans to tackle this crisis and finally act upon the recommendations of the National Review of Asthma Deaths.
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for raising this important issue that will be of direct concern to many across the country. As I've said, the next questions to the Secretary of State for Health are on the 4th of June. She may wish to raise that directly with her there, but meantime I'll make sure that she has heard the Honourable Lady's concerns.
Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the House will no doubt be aware of the ongoing speculation that Royal Mail and its parent company IDS are subject to a takeover bid by EP Group. I know she will agree with me that the Royal Mail plays an important economic, social and cultural role in this country, as well as delivering a universal service obligation to all parts of the UK. Royal Mail is an iconic British brand. It carries His Majesty's insignia and plays a vital role in all UK elections. And as a constituency MP, I know how much my constituents in Warrington South value regular and timely postal services. So could we have a debate in government time on what legal safeguards are available to ensure the important functions of Royal Mail are delivered for all our constituents and they continue beyond the obligations under the National Security and Investments Act in the event that the company is taken over and headquartered outside the UK?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman raises a very important matter. These services are absolutely fundamental, not least because many healthcare services rely on them in particular, and other Honourable Members have raised concerns around that. Given that the next questions to the Secretary of State on this matter are not until the 13th of June, I will make sure that she has heard the Honourable Gentleman's concerns.
Alan Dorrans.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Good morning. Madam Deputy Speaker, on behalf of my constituent Glenn Coleman and the many other victims who were discriminated against and dishonourably discharged from the armed services for being gay, can the leader give any reassurance that the LGBT Veterans Independent Review carried out by Lord Etherton will be brought forward for debate in the near future, or at least before the general election?
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for raising this. I think the review and the apology that was given by the Prime Minister on behalf of the nation is an incredibly important landmark. I know there are still outstanding issues with regard to those in services which were not public-facing intelligence agencies and so forth, and I will make sure that the relevant minister has heard what he has said, and I'd encourage him to apply for a debate in the usual way.
Anna Firth.
Deputy Speaker, the Lee Lionesses Football Club is a newly founded football club aimed at providing a nurturing environment for girls to thrive in football. But according to leading member Gary Jacobs, whose daughter is a brilliant Lee Lioness, their journey has been marred by a real struggle to find a consistent playing venues and suitable facilities because they're so often already booked up by the boys' football clubs. So can we have a debate, please, in government time on the number of pitches and all-weather pitches and facilities available for women's football up and down the country?
Well, I can feel a bid to the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport coming up, and I know the Honourable Lady is a formidable campaigner. She will know that the next questions to the Secretary of State are on the 23rd of May, and I would encourage her to raise this directly with her. The Secretary of State has taken a particular interest in community sport and has given quite considerable grant funding to local authorities to increase pitches, and particularly pitches that can be used all year round. And my office stands ready to assist the Honourable Lady in making sure that every person in her constituency, especially the girls' teams, have somewhere that they can play this sport.
Ian Lavery.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, the TSB announced 36 bank closures, including the closure of the bank on Bedlington High Street in my constituency. It'll be the last bank closing its doors, making Bedlington basically a banking desert. I understand that lots of people now prefer telephone banking, internet banking, but there's lots and lots of people, mainly vulnerable people, who depend on high street banks. This will have a huge impact on Bedlington. Will the Leader of the House join me in appealing and demanding of the TSB to review their decision at Bedlington, and can we have a debate in this House to discuss the impact on towns like Bedlington because of these actions?
Sorry to hear about the situation in the Honourable Gentleman's constituency, and it is in everyone's interest, including banks' interest, that they can have that constituents can have access to their services. Even if a particular building, bricks and mortar, has to close down, there are ways of retaining these vital services, cash banking for businesses, and he is quite right, access to banking services, particularly for vulnerable and older people. These need to be continued in our communities. I will make sure that the relevant department will give the Honourable Gentleman advice about what he can do to help facilitate that. But of course, this bank has an obligation to ensure that its customers can continue to use its services.
Marco Longhi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, I have stopped the large number of so-called asylum seekers from attending my surgeries, and I have instructed my office to not deal with asylum cases for two reasons, Madam Deputy Speaker. For two reasons. As MPs, we have zero authority, zero mandate or influence over Home Office decisions. We have very limited resources, and I, for one, want to dedicate my resources to putting Dudley people first. Can we have a debate on the pressure that asylum seekers are putting on our nation's resources and on our local services?
Absolutely. Well, the Honourable Gentleman raises a specific point which I could generalise from, because our approach to this issue has been to recognise that we have finite resources and we want to be able to direct them in the most efficient and effective way possible. And that's why we have to control our borders. That's what the British people want. They want a government to be able to control access of foreign nationals to the UK. And as well as border control, we have been reforming the processes at the Home Office. You will know that we've had a speed up of looking at cases by now, I think, close to 300%, and we are cracking through that backlog. We will get on top of that. The progress the public can see is being made, including getting people out of hotels. We are making good progress. We need to continue that progress to make sure that the systems we have in place are not piling pressure onto local services, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, or whether it is the services the Honourable Gentleman offers in his office. That is very well understood, and I hope he understands the government is doing that.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Up and down the country, hundreds of thousands of young people are about to be taking their summer exams, but unfortunately it's not going to be a level playing field. That's because thousands of pupils, including hundreds in my constituency of Warwick and Leamington, have been impacted significantly by RAC and asbestos, losing several months of face-to-face teaching. Now, the DFE and the exam boards do not seem interested in providing an uplift to those young people to ensure they get some fair examination. So could we have a debate in government time about the impact of RAC and asbestos on the learning and opportunity of young people and the need for fair and equal examinations this summer?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman raises a very important point. He will know that the Secretary of State for Education, in legendary fashion, has been doing something about this matter. If he will furnish me with the details of the schools that he is particularly concerned about in his constituency, I will make sure that the Department for Education get that message and respond to his office so that his constituents do not face disruption this summer when they're doing their exams.
Dr. Luke Evans.
On behalf of Hinckley and Bosworth, can I congratulate the returning PCC, Rupert Matthews, the Conservative PCC in Leicestershire. Now, this was in no small part to his introduction of a rural crime team, which since they've been introduced has recovered 1.3 million worth of stolen goods and reduced rural crime by 24% in their last newsletter. So will she thank the returning PCC, the Leicestershire Police Force, and most importantly, the officers of the rural crime team for all they do to reduce crime in the likes of villages like Market Bosworth and the surround?
Well, I will happily join with him in congratulating Rupert Matthews on his return to office, but also congratulate and thank him for the leadership he has shown in reducing crime in his local area, and of course the police force who are there in the front line. The police across the country, and in particular parts of the country, often get a hard time from us in this place, but they do tremendous work. On the same resource since 2010, crime has been halved in this country, leaving aside online fraud, and of course we have particular hotspots in the West Midlands and in London. But that is a tremendous achievement, and it's thanks to that accountability and direct democracy with police crime commissioners, but most of all the hard work and efforts and effectiveness of our police officers.
And just a reminder, it is important to ask the Leader of the House about some business connected with the House, as well as congratulating various people. Andrew Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituent Janice lost her brother in 2020 in a tragic incident caused by a dangerous driver. Since then, she has campaigned tirelessly for those convicted of causing death by dangerous driving to receive lifetime driving bans. As things stand, I understand that the government are looking at this issue but have been doing for some time. So could we have a statement from the relevant minister setting out the government's intentions on this issue and whether they will seek to ensure that those convicted of causing death by dangerous driving cannot again get behind the wheel?
Well, I thank the Honourable Gentleman for bringing to the House's attention the work of Janice and on this important issue, and thank her for what she is doing in the wake of an appalling tragedy to alleviate and make sure that no one else has to endure what she has gone through. I will make sure that both the Lord Chancellor and the Secretary of State for Transport have heard the Honourable Gentleman's ask for an update on this very important matter.
I thank the Leader of the House for answering the business